Hello everyone, welcome to the panel. Sorry. So after speaking about Bitcoin and other coins and how they react to the latest developments in their price, let's talk a little bit about the industry in all its facets. So about a year ago, it seemed like the crypto industry is growing like nothing we've seen before. If you would walk across the street here and look at the ATM machine, the Bitcoin ATM machine here, you would see a long line queued. A lot of people want to buy Bitcoin, want to buy other coins, pay their shekels, and to invest in this new gold. Every cabbie, every housewife, every dentist would talk to you about Bitcoin. And it seemed like everybody wanted a slice of the pie. We saw so many companies. I was here, even in this very room, in a few conferences, and we saw so many companies, so many new brand names, and it seemed like, you know, sky's the limit. But even back then, some people saw what's coming. So I remember being here in Tel Aviv, meeting with Jack McCaleb from Stellar. And he said something very interesting. He said, we want to be real enough before this dot-com bubble bursts. So there are a lot of other quotes from other people who saw what's coming, and indeed it came. So we're now at the bust after the boom. And just to name a few, only this week Bitmain shut down its Israeli R&D center, which is actually, unlike other media outlets that said that they're shutting down their mining activities, they shut down their R&D center, which is a lot more dramatic in my point of view. Consensus fired some 15% of its staff globally. CoinFloor laid off 50% of its staff, and the list goes on. About altcoins, you all know the situation now with the prices. Some of them virtually disappeared. So, by the same token, we had some interesting M&As going on in the ecosystem. Coinbase swallowed a few firms like Earn.com, Cypher Browser, Distributed System, and so on and so on. Some exchanges got acquired: Poloniex, Exmo, Bitstamp, and the list goes on. By the way, some of the companies that bought them were not even from the industry. So what we're seeing, to say, bottom line, what we're seeing is we see a smaller amount of players that are becoming larger and larger, and basically the industry is consolidating. So before we move on to the panel and to the questions, I would like to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll start the talk. Please.
My name is Sandris Murins. I'm from Riga/Kiev. So I'm a serial blockchain entrepreneur. And my latest project is Index Protocol. So we are building a blockchain protocol for decentralized derivatives. And not only me is here, but the CEO of the company, Yulia, as well as here. So if you want to ask some questions, you can ask directly her.
Hi, my name is Eran Tier. I'm founder and CEO of LegitTech. We develop blockchain-based solutions for the enterprise world, primarily for insurance company. It's not the first company I founded. I guess it makes me a serial entrepreneur as well. I spent a couple of years in IBM looking at blockchain technology and how this affects the enterprise world.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are building VeganNation, which is a platform designed to unite the global vegan community into a shared economy. We're doing this in partnership with the biggest vegan organizations in the world, PETA, Sea Shepherd, and smaller organizations around the world to create a clean economy, launching our vegan cryptocurrency called Vegan Coin at the beginning of the year.
Hi, everybody. I am Aviv, the CEO and founder of 101 Blockchains. We are supporting the blockchain digital transformation for the enterprises. I have more than 10 years of enterprise products building experience that I'm bringing to 101 Blockchains to the blockchain transformation.
Thank you, guys. So, Isaac, let me start with you. You said that you're launching your ICO around Christmas, but you're saying in the beginning of the year. So, following what I just said about how the industry is consolidating and becoming so much more difficult, what is the process of running an ICO right now, and how is it different from what we saw a year ago?
So first of all, it's very different from a year ago. We had the opportunity to launch back in February, then in March, but we decided to do things different than the rest of the industry for the exact same reasons that you see now. If we would launch Vegan Coin last February, we would probably raise $100 million just because the buzzwords and the community were doing, but then it would go down 90% and we would not have the trust of the community. Instead of that, we went the long way and did a lot of the groundwork and building the infrastructure and doing all the stuff that companies are talking about doing 2 and 3 years after the ICO, which is one big dream. Some of them will, some of them won't, most likely, but we did a lot of this work before the ICO in order to make sure that we go out not just with a token, but with a serious platform, and we have the backing and partnerships of everyone in the vegan community. And it's been an amazing journey, but it's also amazing to see what's happening to the rest of the industry. And I don't like to talk about other companies. There are many good companies, and many of them probably less than good. But what I say, it's definitely very challenging, but it's challenging in the crypto world. People, I mean, it's total speculation, and I see that some of the first meetings that we had when we started VeganNation, some of the offers and business proposals that I got were mind-blowing, but none of them are around now. So we're doing things very different than a regular ICO. All of our investors, besides one, are first-time crypto investors. So they've seen the market. They hear all the bad stuff going on, supposedly bad, and they still decided to get into this one because it's very different. We're building a real community behind it that will be using tokens and not just speculation.
Okay, Sanders, I see that you want to barge in. I will ask you the same question, though, because I know you consulted quite a few ICOs yourself, and how is it different right now from about a year ago? And with your permission, I want you to go into details in terms of marketing and acquisition costs, regulatory costs, and so on.
Okay, I think I saw my colleagues from my Iconic Club as I made research what's going on with ICOs. And they find out very interesting correlation between how act in general market, crypto market, market capitalization, and what's linked with ICO volumes of rise. And it seems that there is a 1 month time lag. So almost perfect correlation with 1 month time lag. So it means if crypto market goes down by market capitalization, after 1 month, approximately the same percentage go with with ICOs down. And I think there is a lot of course, speculations about that ICOs now is killed mostly by scams, but I think it's mostly by Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is down. So it's everything now. It's dependent how long the bear market will be. So this is one thing. Second thing, what I can remember from last, so we started, Iconic Lab started its own ICO activities somewhere on last August, September, and October. And then I remember when I was in Russia, in Moscow, at somewhere on this February. So in order to understand, their marketing costs was around 1 million, from 1 to 2 million they put into the marketing, and they hoped that they will rise from 10 to 15 millions. Around that time when we started, somewhere about legal costs, cost for us in Germany cost around 50,000 euros. And for us, around smart contract development costs around 20,000 euros. It costs around 200 euros per coding hour. That's what I want to say. I want to say two things. First of all, cost, of course, increases. One thing. Second is ICOs are dead because of crypto bear market, as previously speaker said correctly. Just we in the market which are very quickly organic market which quickly grows, goes down. So we in a little bit market which accelerating very quickly. So this second thing, and I think the biggest learning what I see from my project and from all other which was involved, that there is one aspect as well. So there is after ICO market, post ICO marketing cost, and it means you need to feed the news, you need to participate in roadshows, you still need to do a lot of, and I calculated with some ICO founders in Singapore, with Lala coin. So we calculated that at least you need 20 million fundraised in order it makes sense regarding post ICO costs. Yeah. So therefore, I would say what will be happens. There will be few good projects still will do ICOs, and most probably in regarding protocol tokens, and anything else will may transform into security tokens.
Thank you. So let me ask you, you were talking about the bear market, and I want to open for a question for the entire panel. A more general question. Given the low prices of the coins and given the high prices of marketing, acquisition, regulations, and so on, is there any room for small players in this industry right now? So yeah, Ran, you go first.
Well, I think that the fundamental issue is ICO is that when the market was hyped and everybody that said blockchain or crypto could sell whatever, companies that should never existed and would never pass first or second presentation at a venture capital fund started to raise money. But this doesn't make any sense. And if you look at utility tokens, a lot of them are not worth much. When you're talking about security tokens, it's a totally different ballgame. It's basically making an asset which is not liquid and making it, providing it with some liquidity. Because you issue a token which is linked to a share of the company. At the end of the day, you end up with a share. I think this market eventually will be heavily regulated because it's a bit like doing an IPO, but without all the barriers. So I think it will change. But I think that small companies that don't have anything interesting to offer, I think the market is starting to speak for itself. And if you look at some of the largest players in the market, if you look at some of the largest rounds of financing, it didn't happen through ICO, not of a utility token and not of a security token, because this is, I'd say this is a poorest people option, quote unquote. So if you can raise money in other ways, it's probably better. Also the high cost of performing an ICO is a barrier. So that's
Aviv, can you take it from here? Same question. Is there room for smaller players in this industry right now?
Yeah, I think that definitely there is a lot of room. I think that what I am currently seeing that we see much more talented people and experienced entrepreneurs that are shifting and joining the blockchain world. We saw plenty of ICO, of course, related to B2C, but very few projects related to B2B, and very few people who understand how to B2B and enterprises are working. And this is why I'm also really excited to meet people like this guy that he worked before in IBM, and much more people experience of how to build application to the real world, to the real use cases. And personally, I think that the next big step to see in this area is the adoption of enterprises before we'll see much wider adoption of the cryptocurrencies. I mean, much more adoption of blockchain technology to build better supply chains, better customer services, better interaction with the end users before we will see more adoption by the mass of Bitcoin.
Regarding your question, I think for me, no doubt, the huge consolidation will happen and will continue next year, particularly crypto exchanges. So if we see the biggest crypto exchange, Binance, has at least 2 months around. 2 months ago, so they have around 8% of market share of daily trade. So it's almost nothing. What we see is there's around 300, more than 3 or several hundred exchanges. The most part of them are, I would say, not maintaining the level when there will be efficiency. Therefore, what we will see the maybe bigger consolidation by exchanges. So there will be M&A activities, and poorer will go down. It's one thing, and it will be done through economical logic. One thing, legal costs for exchanges. Second, and third, it's more and more likely or not, but the market becomes more and more professionalized. What we see, yes, we see going down anything with cryptos, basic assets. It's true. But what we see emergence of this year, what's the big thing of this year is crypto derivatives. So you see future volumes of Bitcoin, Ethereum skyrocketing. We see the bigger exchanges like BitMEX, OKEX, Huobi. Most Asian exchanges are offering different kind of futures to their clients. One thing. Second thing, what we see stable coins. So this year is a year of crypto finance. So I would say everybody expects there will be some kind of new super use cases of blockchain from organic use like supply chain and etc. and etc. But we need to be realistically, if we see on the data, most of them fail. Where everything goes to crypto finance. It becomes more and more we started with Bitcoin instead of banks. Then we have Ethereum instead of decentralized depository, and now we have different DEX, decentralized exchanges. We will have decentralized stable coins. We will have decentralized futures, and etc. So we are going more and more just more through internal growth of crypto finance. That is how I see what actually happened this year.
Okay. Aviv, let me ask you, being the techie of the panel, what we saw in this last crazy year that we experienced, from my point of view, what was in the center was the brand. Basically, you had a lot of companies that didn't really have sufficient technology, any technological model, or even worse, we all know how many companies just copied white papers without even knowing anything about the technology that the original white paper was offering. So maybe the future will be more modest companies just working on technology, not necessarily something that will be an end product, maybe just some small facet of the larger picture, and just waiting to be acquired, waiting for their exit. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely yes. Looking on the blockchain technology stack, there are a lot of room for different parts to build the Web3 stack. But I think that we're definitely going to see more and more companies that are building their product before they write the white paper. Okay, in my previous companies, we were building products that with less papers, more working products. And I think that even speaking on the next year on the STOs, we will see working products before people are raising money on papers. Regarding the application, I think that we have seen plenty of different blockchains, and currently we are seeing more and more understanding that it's not the concept of building the blockchain, because at the end we have one scalable solution that can support the DApps and can support the different enterprises, but we will see more utilizations of smart utilization and better applications on top of blockchain stack that can utilize Hyperledger or Ethereum, whatever the team will define. But definitely, I believe that we'll see less and less core blockchain infrastructures.
Please, Isaac.
I'm going to answer the two last questions in one, and that's most of my meetings are with first-time crypto investors, as I said before, and people hear in the news about the bearish market, no ICOs and things like that. And I think we forget, both people in the blockchain and crypto industry, and definitely people that are looking at it from the outside, we're forgetting two things. Number one, in any area of business in the world, you have a 5 to 10% success chance. Okay, if you go outside and start a restaurant, you have about a 5% chance to survive the first year. It's insane to think that every ICO would make it. You have only 5%. So people look at all the tokens that are worth nothing. It doesn't mean anything. All you need to figure out is what are those 5% that will actually stay around for a long time. Second thing is, people talk about the crash of Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think that $3,000 for a digital currency is absolutely insane. If you would look at this a few years ago, when the Bitcoin was $100 and you would tell someone that it's going to get to 3,000, they would throw you off the roof. We are sitting inside a stock exchange talking about cryptocurrency. That's a crazy thing. 20 years ago, you would never imagine such a possibility. The fact that we're sitting here and we're talking about a digital asset worth $3,000.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. It might go even lower.
Well, it's about
Even if
$3,000 more than it's actually worth.
Even if it's worth $100, it's still, we're sitting in a stock exchange talking about digital currencies. The vision and the mission that cryptocurrency and blockchain brought to the world is live, is existing, and you have more and more good people getting into this industry and figuring out what's the best way to carry out the vision. But to talk about a crash, I think, is very childish, especially when most of the companies that did ICO did not even have a chance to go out to market with a product. You have very few products that are out there after ICO. So we have a long way to go before we can talk about a crash of anything.
I want to talk about two things that relates to that. First is the technology. Well, digital ledger technology is good for certain usages and irrelevant for others. So I think we're seeing more realization that, you know, blockchain is the answer. What's the question? It's not going to work anymore. So it works for cryptocurrency. It can work for insurance. It can work for banking. I know that some of the leading banks in the world are running successfully blockchain-based proof of concepts. Some of them are already in productions. And I'm talking about companies like Credit Suisse and UBS and Citibanks and so on. So there is something in the technology. IBM is promoting Hyperledger Fabric. There is R3 Corda. There are other technologies that are good for the enterprise. I agree with you that we haven't seen much, or hardly any companies that have actually built a piece of technology that they can sell and generate revenues and have a valid business model without just raising money. It hasn't happened yet, and it has to happen as the market matures. So that's from a technology perspective. If we look at the crypto, the value of cryptocurrency, you mentioned $3,000 for Bitcoin. The value of Bitcoin is zero. There's nothing underlying it to support it. When you look at the fiat currency, it's not linked to gold anymore or whatever, but there is an economy, there is GDP behind it. If you're stuck even with a Turkish lira, you can go to Turkey and buy assets or services with it. But if you're stuck with Bitcoin and the market crashes, you can do absolutely nothing. It's like me taking this bottle of mineral water saying, this is a unique bottle of mineral water. It's mine. There's some DNA of mine on it. And now I'm going to break it into 40 million pieces, and I'm going to start selling it. I'm going to start selling it cheap. I'm going to start selling it for 10 cents a piece. And people will say, well, you know, there are only 40 million units of this unique bottle, so, you know, I'm going to buy it for $1, hoping that my next door neighbor is a bit more stupid. He's going to pay $2 for it. But at the end of the day, it's a bloody bottle of mineral water. That's what Bitcoin is all about, in my opinion.
two things which I don't disagree with you. First of all, I think it's not relevant to compare Bitcoin with companies and any big top currency with top currencies and top crypto assets with companies, because most of them are based open source. So therefore, much better would be compared with with Linux and etc. And let's say, to my mind, cryptocurrencies are just improved version of Linux system for one or several use cases. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing we see in the history of Bitcoin is history was in 2008. So of course, so it's more than this history is more than the last bubble. So this industry at least experienced 4 or 5 bubbles, as correctly point out professor. Therefore, I wouldn't say that it's just a short-term bubble without any some kind of with any substantial value. I think particularly its substantial value that it's just decentralized, not anybody owned financial system and financial assets, and that's the same thing why dollar is okay have value, because it's not, we don't have any more like PECs and etc. So that there is some kind of countries and institutions which gives them okay value, and there is a huge community which gives a value to Bitcoin. I wouldn't be so drastically saying that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value.
Well,
So
actually,
let me, sorry, Aaron, let me interrupt. Let me ask you this. We were talking about what caused the bull run and now the decline, and we're talking about basically the recovery, the next cycle, okay? So if we examine this very shortly, we will see that the majority of the money that made this bull run was basically retail money. It's regular people investing, basically speculators, retail speculators. There wasn't that much institutional money coming in.
Sure.
And there were a lot of news about it, but mostly it was just either just fake news or just some intentions of some companies to invest, but nothing really sufficient. So once you don't have the institutional money yet, and the retail money is suffering from some kind of a trust crisis, right? Because people invested their money, they didn't get the product yet. I know that we all have some good explanations of why that happened, but at the end of the day, people put their money inside and they didn't see anything from the other end a year later. So the question is where the money for the next cycle is going to come from. If it's not going to be institutional, if it's not going to be a retail. Eran, maybe you can take it from here?
yeah, well, people are waking up and realizing that just investing in something that doesn't make any sense from a business perspective will not generate any income from them. So we will see what happened in year 2000 around the dot-com boom, where companies that had no business model or no technology, just a vague idea about selling groceries from a supermarket in the Silicon Valley. I think it was called Webvan, and there were companies who were selling dog food over the internet and suddenly became worth $400 million and so on and so on. And we ended up with Amazon. So out of all this hype and bullshit came companies with real technology, with real business model, with real value that generated profit, that actually had something to sell, and that their shares became valuable. And it will happen here as well. With the issuance of, and I agree with you, by the way, you cannot compare Bitcoin to a security token. When you do an ICO of a security token, you buy a share of a company, and if the company is successful, then the value of your investment rises. It's like buying a share in a stock exchange, but without the regulation. Now, the regulation on one hand is good for me is not good for me as an entrepreneur, because there's someone looking behind my shoulder and telling me, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. And trust me, I've been through this phase before. A few years before I sold my previous company to IBM, we were thinking about taking our company public on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. We had a prospectus. We got the approval from the Israeli SEC to go public, and then the market crashes. It was the beginning of 2008. And I'm very grateful that it happened, because otherwise we would have had a price tag. So there was something to measure us by, and not just by technology. But I've been through the process of preparing a company to an IPO, and having to go through all the regulations from a legal and financial standpoints. And it's a pain in the neck, and it's expensive. However, the advantage is that as an investor, when I buy a share from a company through a process which is regulated, I have some sort of security. Not a lot, but some. I think that there will be some sort of middle grounds. So there will be some regulations, and therefore the companies who are doing security tokens will have to come up with, I'd say, more successful business models and financial models and so on. And therefore, people who will invest, companies who will go through this sieve, will end up with, I'd say, better chances of being successful. And the investors who will buy their security tokens will have better chances of actually making money on their investments.
I actually want to talk about the point of the regulation. I think that's the worst PR for the blockchain and crypto industry. People in the industry had started, and by saying there's no regulation, people from the outside think there's no regulation. So people have a trust problem, like you said, with this industry. There is regulation. Just a lot of people, because it's a newer technology and a newer industry, a lot of people decided to cut corners. There is very clear regulations all over the world on what you can sell, if you can sell a paper cup and how you can sell a paper cup. There's regulation for everything. People found loopholes and decided to use them instead of figuring out how do we, if we really believe in cryptocurrency, how do we do this right? People went to Malta, to Cyprus, and to all those places just to cut corners. We went to London, okay? We're under full regulation. The companies that will be around 2 years from now, 5 years from now, are companies that are willing to self-regulate themselves and impose on themselves as much regulation as possible in order not to wake up sometime when some regulator wakes up and said, you did everything wrong.
Yes, but I think here is very important again point. If we see nowadays on crypto markets and we see on top assets, we cannot say that these are some kind of security tokens, that these are companies and etc. They mostly are, let's say, coins, like similar to some kind of replacement or competition with fiat, some kind of network, open source network utilities. Therefore, I would say that what was to my mind is a little bit mistaken, that we are saying, okay, here is the companies which raise money through IPO, through ICO, and these are crypto currencies or crypto assets. I would say it was dreams that it would be, but reality is a little bit different. Reality is a main part of value attractors are just coins and some protocol tokens, which have nothing common with any company. So yes, it's true. The next year, maybe, or maybe not next year, but the year after that, could be year of security tokens, which there would be some kind of new wave or new kind of new field. And I wouldn't say that maybe it's even won't be. It's more precisely, we are not saying that it will be crypto or crypto finance or crypto assets. Maybe let's say that it will be tokenized assets. Yes? So it's because there are two completely different stories, and I would say that it's wrong to mess up on all things together. And security tokens and all this what you are saying still is very, very super niche or almost nothing attract value at that point. So.
Thank you. I think we'll move on to the closing question, and I'll open it for the entire panel. And Aviv, we'll start from you because you didn't have much chances to talk. I want you guys to really, make your bold statement about the next year or two. What are we going to see in the industry? Get your crystal ball out and try to think what we're going to see. Are we going to see Coinbase being acquired by Facebook, like some people claim? Are we going to see Bitmain collapse, or maybe some positive things? Are we going to see a new bull run that will, give birth to new companies and new brands? So, Aviv, please.
Yeah. So I'm much more like a blockchain guy and less crypto guy. So of course I will support it. The blockchain technology will go much. We will see much more adoption for different applications around the different companies. We're already seeing a lot of thousands of POCs and other hundreds of successful implementations. And I think that this is the next big wave. We can think about it in this way. We can make Bank of America a bit better, or we want to use only Bitcoin instead of go to Bank of America. I believe that the first phase we're going to see is building better banking systems and better making the users valuable again, what we a little bit lost through the past years. And I see that the enterprises are really want to do it and give the consumers and the end user much more value. Just an example to open your mind, the federated network with Hyperledger and Walmart, that they save a lot of money and give more value to the customers.
My answer will be a sneak preview to my talk in about a half hour. But I think that the entire industry kind of lost the way. I would say lost their mind, but that's true in many. But people look at blockchain as a goal. Blockchain is not a goal. Blockchain is a tool, okay? And for the last few years, for the last 2 years, and most of the money raised in ICOs, we're convincing people that there's some goal in blockchain. Blockchain is just a tool. And we need to start bringing the users. We need to start showing the public. We need to start showing the masses how their life will be better with this particular tool. So I think that that's where the blockchain space is going. I think that more and more people will wake up and realize that either their dream is not possible, their dream is not feasible, there's no users that are willing to adapt to their dream, and the companies that will succeed are going to be companies that are able to show to the average Joe on the street why his life is better with this particular tool.
Yeah, I think that the technology will mature. I think that enterprises will start using more blockchain technology, like you said. I think that one of the fundamental problems of blockchain technology, like the non-enterprise blockchain technology, is performance. You can process something like 20 transactions per second on the Bitcoin network. Just to give you an example, you do about 65,000 Google searches per second, and about 1.3 billion transactions using IBM CICS Transaction Monitor. So at the moment, this is a significant barrier on this technology becoming more publicly used. People cannot accept the fact that they're going to take their credit card and then going to wait 3 days to the settlement to occur. Just not going to happen. So until we see that, it will stay like the cryptocurrency will stay some sort of a niche, speculative investment vehicle.
I think several things will be no doubt. I think next year we will have a lot of delistings from exchange, different kind of tokens. I think a lot of companies go bankrupt is one thing. Second is a lot of exchanges will understand that there is a lack of liquidity for a lot of tokens, so there is no sense to do it. So there will be huge delistings next year, one thing. There will be, from bad sides, there will be, I think, wave of bankruptcy, not only for blockchain project, for crypto or / blockchain projects, but as well from exchanges. A lot of exchanges will go bankrupt next year. and some of them who will be lucky will be acquired.
You're very optimistic.
I will give, but I will give. There will be optimistic as well. And I think what will be optimistically, I think there will be more and more. We will more and more will speak about crypto finance. There will be some kind of new, let's say, what we are seeing is this year as well. So what we see is there is people who are coming, the people are going away. Yes, so it's ordinary people coming away, but some people are staying. So there's some people who are staying, who are moving technology next step, but as well there are some people who are staying, who move here to trade, and who will crypto finance will move away. And I think there will be a lot of more and more professional traders who has same skills as somebody has skills in the traditional finance and banking. And for them, we will see more crypto derivatives, different kind of derivative instruments, more ETFs we will see, more decentralized instruments. I think this we will see, okay, next year. Then I think as well will happen is that next year we will start not saying that there will be one crypto field, because there will be several crypto fields. So one will be crypto field which we know like Bitcoin and etc., all decentralized stuff. And second will be security tokens, which have completely different logic, which will have completely different investor profile who will participate there. This I think will happen next year as well. And there is a big question mark which has huge impact on crypto market in general. What will happen with, in general, what will happen with the finance industry? If there will be new crisis or not. And again, there is two scenarios. If there will be a lot of institutional money into crypto markets, then of course we will shrink. But if it will not happen, then I think a lot of people from South America, from very vulnerable countries, they will move to crypto assets more and more, because this is the way how they can deal with their trust, with their local issues, and etc.
Thank you. I think we have time for questions from the audience. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you so much for expressing and sharing your honest opinions. It was really refreshing. My question is specifically for Aviv and Iran. So when you are dealing with enterprise-grade solutions, and especially from a developer standpoint, because I'm a developer, what kind of platforms and solutions tools do you specifically deal with? Especially because on an enterprise-grade level, we're really talking about scalability, things like microtransactions or things like that. So what kind of technology do you get your hands dirty with typically?
I can tell you what we use internally. That's primarily Hyperledger Fabric. And there's a good reason for that. There's a saying in the industry that no one was fired for buying IBM. So our customers are very conservative. And when you introduce new technology to banks and insurance companies, they would like to minimize the risk. So using a platform like Hyperledger Fabric is good. Other alternatives will be the R3 Corda, which is a consortium that a lot of financial institutions are taking part of. It's not really blockchain. It's blockchain-like, but uses Java as the development language and relational databases and so on. So it's like providing some of the advantages without some of the disadvantages. So there are pros and cons to each of them. These are the two I would look to.
Definitely the same. I plan to say Hyperledger and Corda, but I also think that we didn't mention at all the blockchain as a service trend that we can see all the offering from Oracle, AWS, Azure, and they all offer Hyperledger. So they all know something. Trust them.
It might not be the best technology in the world, but it's basically one of the safest. Yeah. And you know, we're in this business to make money at the end of the day, so we would like to have as little as possible resistance from our customers.
I also think that at the end of the day, when an enterprise wants to acquire new technology, he wants a liability. He needs to go and he wants to, the CIO want to sleep well. He wants to have the trust that someone is taking responsibility. And IBM is taking kind of responsibility with Hyperledger, while some other platform when they're running as a decentralized organization, it may be more complicated for liabilities. So it's a good option.
Anyone else? We have room for one more question. Anyone? Yeah, please.
I've kind of had my hand in different parts of blockchain and crypto for the past, shooting myself in the leg for moving back to Israel and not mining in 2010. But when you guys think that the value of Bitcoin is essentially zero, so to say, and that the dollar's not backed by gold anymore, everything essentially has no value if you think about it. It's somewhere of a mix between like an imagined community and the social construct that we as humans give it value. And so when you kind of take that into context and where the technology is going to move in the next 10 years, is the value of one Bitcoin not the way to look at it and rather the value of the Satoshi in the long run?
Since I made this controversial comment, I'll take the first pass at answering you. The reason that the US dollars has a value is because there is a whole economy behind it. So at the end of the day, you can go to McDonald's and eat your dollars. But you can't do it with Bitcoin if they don't accept it.
Can you do that in Venezuela today?
Probably. You just need a lot of Venezuelan currency in order to go to McDonald's, if there is one still. So yeah, you can do it. And you can do it with an Iraqi dinar and with a Turkish lira. Because there is a market, people will buy it, people will sell it, people will provide services and take this currency because it's a legal currency in the state where it exists. Blockchain isn't. Bitcoin isn't. It's just a friction of our imagination, sort of.
First of all, it's a great question. That's why I don't believe in 99% of the cryptocurrencies, because it's baloney. They were launched as a vehicle to raise funds from the public. At the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Every currency that you know in the world today, at least that I know, is not backed by gold or anything. Yes, over time, over a period of 100 years, they built a community that is willing to lay their trust in their local currency. It's not something that happens day one. Bitcoin has a community that is willing to use it based on a certain value. The question is, what is the value? But with that being said, most of the cryptocurrencies did not even have that in mind of who's going to use it on a daily basis. One of the only thing that I know that is close to a currency with a real community behind it is vegan coin, and that's why we're so different than any of the other stuff in the market. We're doing this together with a real community, a passionate, dedicated, activist community that does not want to support the old system and the dirty money. And what the vision of cryptocurrency fits veganism in such a beautiful way, the transparency to the financial system. That's why this is a community that the leaders of the community, the leading organizations, we already have hundreds of vegan businesses around the world that announced that they're going to accept vegan coin as a method of payment day one. So this is not some dream into the future of if we're going to build some blockchain infrastructure. It doesn't matter. The question is, who's going to be using your token and a currency on a daily basis?
Sanders, 1 minute,
Yes.
Okay?
Two,
Real quick.
Two answers. First of all, I would say always there are tech bubbles, you know. There WhatsApp, when they go IPOs, they don't have any revenues and they have several billions, you know, even bigger than anything crypto, biggest IPOs in the US. Second, which is very, very important. So it's cryptocurrencies, to my mind, is not a European use case. So even so, 4 years ago, I can buy in Latvia. I can buy plane tickets by Bitcoin. It's not anymore offer because I can do it much easier by euros. But there is a lot of like Venezuela, Argentina, Turkey, when they have different kind of restriction for people. Okay, when they do not trust their own local financial situation, so they switch to this use case. The same thing in China. okay, you want to like store values that no Chinese government can take, can take. What you do, you buy bitcoins. If you want to send somebody, bitcoins to globally and how get around the world, you do that. And I think these are like organic crypto new use cases.
Okay, guys, we're out of time. You can meet the panelists later if you want to ask more questions. Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you.